Leah Braun is a senior partner with Nsight Partners. Nsight partners allies with individuals, businesses, and organizations to help them solve problems and achieve results. They accomplish that through coaching, training, and consulting, all designed to develop and grow the individuals and the organization. Leah retired from the South Dakota National Guard at the rank of Master Sergeant after 22 years of military service, where she began to hone her passion for working with people. Leah has a teaching degree from Black Hills State University and a Master's of Science and Administrative Studies with an emphasis in counseling from USD. Leah is a certified professional coach, credentialed through the International Coach Federation. Leah is a graduate from the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. A career highlight for Leah was being awarded the Friend of a Small Business Award by the South Dakota CEO in May 2017. Leah survives her entrepreneurial days, survives her entrepreneurial days with lots of self-talk and mantras. A few of her favorites are too blessed to be stressed, only boring people get bored, you gotta try, and on a bad day, embrace the suck. When Leah is working in Nsight Partners, when she isn't working in Nsight Partners, she's working in the family business, Twilight First Aid and Safety, which she quips is the side hustle. When she's not working, she can be found hiking, biking, and biking the trails of South Dakota, gardening, cooking, and hanging out with her family. I'm honored to give you Leah Braun.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. The toughest part is over, and that's the introduction. I figured out I don't like talking about myself, and I don't like when other people talk about me. So this is a good challenge. I'm embracing the suck, and I'm gonna get through this. But honestly, I don't want to focus too much on myself this morning or my business, because Helen and I have collaborated on something that I'm really excited to share. But I want to start with a little bit of background. So if you could cue the slide. So a little bit fuzzy here, but right out of college, as Melanie read in my bio, I graduated with a teaching degree, and right out of the chute, I landed a sweet job teaching at Stevens. My friends, my family, everybody, myself included, thought, this is it. She's a teacher. She's going to teach for the next however many years. And actually, I had aspired to be a school counselor, and that's where the master's degree came in. So teaching was great. I do a lot of it today still, and I loved it, but there was some kind of, as my friend Carolyn says, a niggling inside of me that just was like, it made me wonder, what's wrong? Is this not good enough? And it was good enough, but there was something inside of me. And what I didn't realize at the time was that something was kind of an entrepreneurial spirit brewing inside of me. At the same time, teaching at Stevens, I was in the South Dakota National Guard, which I really enjoyed. That was really a part-time endeavor, and I call it the part-time job that isn't, because as you grow in rank, the responsibilities really grow, and it's very difficult to show up one weekend a month and be like, well, I'll get all my work done and nothing else goes on during the month. That's just not true. So at a certain point when we started having children, I quit teaching at Stevens and I taught adult basic education. I also at one point was the director of religious education at our church. Eventually, toward the end of my National Guard career, I was on full time. I was with the chaplaincy, and we did a lot of marriage retreats. We did retreats for singles. We were called into offices when stuff was falling apart, and they'd say, call the chaplains, they'll figure it out, they'll fix it. Well, yeah, we tried. But anyway, so about 19 years in, again, I had this niggling, and I just, not only did I feel like there's something else, I also felt like I never really fit in, which is really ironic considering that I did well and I achieved a pretty high rank, but there was just something there. So finally at 22 years, I was feeling kind of burned out. I was feeling like I didn't want to try to go for, sergeant major or anything like that. So I retired and I quit. But one of my best life accomplishments, I don't know if you can see this, that is a Legion of Merit that I was awarded. It's the highest non-combat award that you can get. And I was so honored to do that, but I felt like I got to quit on a high note. So I did. That's where, next slide, please. That's where my business idea came about. The idea was this: I want to do what I'm doing in the National Guard, working with people, but I want to have my own business. I was scared to death, but I did it anyway. So when I first started, my business name was Resilient Life. And the idea was I'd become certified as a professional coach. The idea was just to do individual coaching. So I did that, and it took me quite a while to build up a practice. I had saved money that I knew I was going to need because I wasn't making a lot in the beginning. But a funny thing happened with this name and logo. I got a call from a lawyer in New York City saying, you have stolen my client's name and logo. What? Heck no. It was my idea, although this was from probably Google Images or something. So it scared me enough that I went ahead and changed the name, and I thought, you know what, this is a good time to do it anyway. So at that point, I thought, well, I'm just going to use my name, because nobody can say I stole their name. That's my name. So that was, the business morphed into that. Well, a few more years pass, and Dr. Bill and I get together, and I figure out that, you know what, it's not just me. This isn't going to work anymore. I became Harney Business Group. We became Harney Business Group. And the idea was the group in Harney Business Group is not just Dr. Bill and I, but folks that we're meeting with who need an accountant. We have one on speed dial. Folks we meet who need a lawyer. We've got somebody on speed dial. Time goes on, and we evolve into what we are today, which is Nsight Partners. And part of the evolution in that was the idea that, you know, we're not just about businesses. We do suicide intervention training, we work with families, we work with nonprofits. So the thing we wanted to emphasize was that we partner with people. And so that was kind of the namesake, and Kendall helped develop the logo and the tagline, and it was a great transition. Now I share all of this because I want to encourage you as entrepreneurs to not be afraid to evolve and shift and grow. Now, somebody on the outside, maybe even you sitting here, might think, this is kind of flaky. You change 4 times. It's what it is. And it's the evolution that has brought me to where I am today, brought us to where we are. Next enters Miss Helen Usera. And I'm going to bring her up in a moment, but I want to tell you how we kind of got started working on the project that we're sharing today. Helen and I were at a women's business thing in Spearfish, and we pretty much literally ran into each other, and at the same time said, we need to merge our businesses. Like, what? You're thinking that too? What? You're thinking that too? Yes, we were. And so we started exploring it, and what we discovered is that keeping them separate was actually a little more advantageous, but we can partner, and that's exactly what we've done. So Helen, do you want to come and share your story, and then we'll get into Shift It? So next slide, please, Cecil.
So as I've gotten to know Leah, I found out that we have a lot more in common, and everything from the share of the Army to being teachers to being moms, and kind of going through all of these changes. You will see here my arrows go 500 different directions, and those of you who know me know that I go 500 different directions. And that's okay for me. I don't apologize for it. This is the way I am. I started out, I was 17 years old when I joined the Army. My dad and mom had to sign off on the paperwork. Mom refused to. Dad said it wasn't good enough because I wasn't joining the Marines. Dad finally caved, and he allowed me to join the Army. My uncle, who had graduated from West Point, actually swore me in, and that was one of the best days. The second best day is when I received my sergeant's stripes, and they had my uncle there to pin me. So he's been with me through that journey. You know, as I have gone through I really haven't changed a lot of my name in terms of my business. But what I have done is really looked at how do I focus on things. And I was one of those people that I can come in and do anything that you need me to do. And that's great. People that have that flexibility. But what I learned is I needed to really hone in and make it very specific. And one of the specific things that I've been able to do is to collaborate with nonprofits and on their boards and build their leadership teams internally with their staff and also with their boards. And so that's the area that I have really focused on and been really engaged with strategic planning and leadership development. With that being said, I've done a lot of public speaking. You might have seen my on billboards, and it wasn't wanted or warning signs underneath my name. I decided to run for public office in 2017. And as I ran for public office, people didn't know my name except for the Usera part. So if you aren't familiar, Useras are prolific in reproduction. So I do come from a long line of Useras. My dad is the oldest of the 10. But there's one thing that I learned about that experience is that being vulnerable and being open really makes you think, who am I and what am I about? And I lost that election by 17 votes. That is a punch in the gut, except for the fact that who I lost to was a 7-year incumbent. So I didn't feel so bad after that. Considering, yeah. Exactly.
Really well.
So my journey has been very similar and on this track with Leah. And as we've continued to collaborate and grow in our partnership with one another, I've realized that I really can't do this work alone. And there's a lot of you in this room that help me through my business. My glasses are because of Kathy. Her image of excellence. My artwork, Twinette. You know, there's all these different components that come together. So that's my journey.
All right, next slide. So where we have come together is we were approached by one woman in particular, but I'm sure Helen has had this experience where I have too. And the experience is women in particular saying, I wish there was kind of a mentoring group. You know, I wish there was something where I could get mentoring in sort of a structured way. And the thing that we've noticed is that there are tons of events, there are tons of great programs for men and women, but there was nothing specifically focused on mentoring. So we got together with the encouragement of Brianna Myers, who was the one who kind of grabbed us jointly and said, we should do this thing. And so we created Shift It, and it's a women to women mentoring group. The idea is that we bring women together quarterly. We provide a little bit of education, but mostly we are helping forge relationships and helping women learn from each other and grow together. And it's a very safe place to do that, a non-threatening kind of environment. You may, if you go out and look for us on Facebook or LinkedIn or any of that, we're not there. And that's an intentional reason. We're trying to keep it very closed, or not closed isn't the right word.
Intimate.
Intimate, thank you, Helen. And trying to keep it from being just another thing, another leadership program, another event. As far as who we've invited, we've been pretty strategic with that as well. We have invited women who have either approached us or we've known them to be someone who could benefit from mentoring. And we've tried to really vet the list so that we don't have like a boss and her employee there, just to create again, that very safe space to learn and grow together. What would you add to that, Helen?
So the evolution of the Shift It name.
Yes, that's good.
So we talked a lot about naming, naming our companies, naming our ventures. And when it came time for this women-to-women mentoring, there are all kinds of different things we could have called it. But when you think about it, when you talk about women in the business world or anywhere in their careers, there's a couple of things that always come up. Climbing the corporate ladder and breaking the glass ceiling. In fact, one of my really good friends gave me this necklace and I thought it was broken until I read the note, and it's to represent breaking the glass ceiling.
Oh.
And so when we started talking, we started going through all kinds of things, including cuss words. So the closest that we could come up with a cuss word was shifted. Actually, what it was about is the fact that women aren't just climbing. Individuals don't just climb. Sometimes you have to shift up. Sometimes you have to shift down. And sometimes you have to remain in neutral in order to get into the next stage. And that's really where we were at with this program. It's not about pushing people into the next level. It's understanding the level you're at so that you can either shift up, shift down, or stay in neutral. And this is the reason why we named it Shift It.
And we know a little bit about shift, don't we?
Yeah, just a little.
All right, next slide, please, Cecil. Do you want to talk about the 4
Sure.
parts, Helen?
So, as you can see, we have kept with the car theme. And you're wondering, well, why did you pick that theme? Well, I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, everybody loves their vehicles. And your vehicle defines your personality. I don't care if it's a rundown truck, which still runs, even though it's a 19 whatever. In all of our work, when we saw this, we looked at it in terms of what is the thing that unifies us? And the one thing that does unify us, but keeps us diverse, is our cars. So, their first session was called See It. And that first session really looked at who I am. We talked about your personality inventories. Now, everybody's gone through personality inventories, right? No. Not everybody has. And not only that, being able to dive into it and really take a look at it. And has it changed since you've taken it before? What in your life has have your experiences conformed or formed you? The second one is Balance It. And that's all about time management and self-care. Guys, I don't know if you guys talk about this when you're with your buddies, but women are always talking about self-care. I think I did this already today. We always are talking about that, but we never make the time for it. So really making sure that we have our time scheduled, managed in such a way, and understanding that balance isn't really about the scales being even. It's really about how do you keep your scales moving. Fit it. Who's on your team? Who's your board of directors, your personal board of directors? Who advises you? Who supports you? Who tells you when it gets real that you have just messed up? Who is in your corner? And also know who isn't in your corner. Because it isn't that they should be on your team, it's knowing what you're setting yourselves up for when you expose yourself out there, when you are exposing your business. Being a political candidate, you expose yourself. And you got to know who's for you and who's against you. Do it. The final stage, that is the goal setting and the power of negotiation. So how much do you negotiate to reach your goals? There is negotiation involved in it, but also how do you negotiate with others so that you aren't minimizing what you do or who you are? And so those are the 4 different sessions that we have focused on.
The first one took place October 25th. We had 15 women attend. We want to cap it at 20 because, again, for the reasons of keeping it intimate and very comfortable for the participants. Balance It will be in December on the 13th, and then winter and early spring. So we're spacing them out with the idea that in between each session, we give the women a kind of a goal of, okay, get together with somebody you met, have coffee, whatever, and get to know each other better. So we wanted to be very strategic and give people time, if they had set goals, to go ahead and, complete those goals in between and build the relationships. So there's one last slide, and then I think we're ready for questions. And that last slide is just to contact us. And I do want to reiterate what Helen said about how challenging it is to do this business alone. I have felt many times that it is lonely being in business, especially for yourself. it is so refreshing to have been able to connect with Helen and be able to collaborate. And when I have an issue with a project I'm working on with a client, she's my first call, either Helen or Dr. Bill. So it's really, really nice to have that kind of collaboration in the business. People have asked us what's next. So you get through these first 4 sessions, what's next? We are leaving that to the group in part. We're going to reach to our core of women who have participated and who will continue and say, where do you want to see this go? Do you want to continue on in maybe a less formal setting? Do we start over with a fresh group of women? We don't know, but we feel like that first session, both of us said, that went way better than I was expecting. So it was off to a good start. Okay, now we're ready for questions.
Okay, I have a question. Sorry, as I walked away. Did you guys coordinate outfits today too?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And it is, this is cardigan day, right, Mr. Rogers? So that's the best I could do in gray for Helen.
Yes. We were at a wedding on Saturday, then we didn't know each other was going to be there, and we actually had on the same dress. So we said, our same color dress, and I said, we're gonna have to figure this out for Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so I called her. I had my whole wardrobe set up for this week because I have a very busy week. I know that sounds anal retentive, but I lay out my clothes for the entire week and iron it and everything on Sunday, so I'm ready to go. And so I texted her and I was like, I'm wearing gray on Wednesday. I called it first.
Good job. Yes, Becca.
I found the photo of isogenics and the photo architecture. I was curious when you said this is what you've started so far and you have these 4 dates. That is a cohesive group, am I correct? That's going forward and there's no one coming in the middle.
Yes and no.
Is that right?
So we started out with a cohesive group, and right now we passed around some postcards around here. Hopefully y'all got them. And what it is the first session, we have people that are only coming for 1 session at a time. And that's fine, because sometimes you get what you need at that point in time and you can move on. But there is a group who is staying with us the entire time. We do have slots available for each session. Right now, the link, I think, is on that postcard. If you go to that link, you can either just sign up for the December one, or you can sign up for the next 3. So there's an option there. Recognizing, though, that there are people who have been in that group the whole time, and so they're going on the complete journey with us.
We designed it that way intentionally, because we didn't know kind of what people would, how they would react if we said, if you do 1, you have to do all 4. We were pretty sure that we wouldn't get very many people just with how busy everybody is. So we hope to have kind of a core group, but we'll see. Time will tell.
And this is really a pilot for us, you know, and it's one of those things, well, you know what, we're just going to jump in and do it. Let's try it out and see how it goes. And we were very intentional again about, and we keep using that word because that was something that was really important to us. We were making sure that we had women from different sectors that worked in different areas, but also different stages of their lives and their careers. So we have people who are empty nesters now, all the way to, we have, well, Brianna.
Yeah,
she is the most energetic
15
15-year-old that I've ever met in my life.
No, she's 20-something, but
We won't tell anybody.
yeah.
We aren't supposed to tell her
She's young
age.
anyway.
She is very young. She keeps us on our toes. We get to teach her technology, though, which is really cool. So that's one of the other benefits that we found, is that this isn't just mentoring between the participants. We are mentoring each other even outside of that.
Yeah.
And in being mentored, I got goosebumps just now talking about it, because it's really cool when you have somebody who's younger than you, who's just new to the career. They're like, well, why didn't you ever think of, didn't think of that. So,
Yes.
Kathy Sassman, Community Veterans. What's the cost of this participation?
90?
yes.
90 a session, or we've given a discount if you sign up for multiple. So people who signed up in the beginning for all 4 got a discount. if the next batch sign up for all the 3 remaining, there'll be a discount, and then I don't know what we'll do after that, but
The reason why we charge, 1 is for a level commitment. 2, we're talking it's a Friday, a half a day. And so that's a pretty big commitment.
right.
For us, we are scheduling out and we are planning this curriculum. And here's the other part. Businesses think of it as an investment in their people.
right.
And so we've had the companies, for most of our participants, have stepped up and said, listen, we will support our person who's at maybe in middle management or up and coming management, or how do we help to transition?
Right. I've also found when you charge for something, even if it's a very nominal fee, people tend to show up and take it a little more seriously. And I don't know what the psychology is with that, but that's what I
Dr. Bill?
found. Yes. Yes, Deanna. Or wait. Yes, I was right.
Leah shop Destiny Westward Church. So might be an uncomfortable question. So,
Hit us.
your businesses sound a little similar.
Yes.
And so how, I guess I'm just wondering, as I'm kind of stepping forward into some things, how you handle competition, and, working together, like if you have an idea that the other person wouldn't be taking the idea or whatever, like, especially early on.
Right.
I'm thinking now you probably have a pretty good.
She takes
Yeah.
my ideas and runs with them all the time.
Yeah.
She is so mean like that.
The difference is I give her credit. I'm like, this is Helen's idea. Well, for me, I think, I don't know where we first met, but there was an instant connection, and from there the trust was built, the foundation of trust. There is some overlap. I mean, there have been times where I'll get a call and they'll say, well, we tried Helen, but she's busy, so I'm the second fiddle, which I'm fine with. But we also definitely have specialties, such as Helen does a lot of strategic planning. I have dabbled in it, I've done it, Dr. Bill has done it. It's not my strongest thing, and so we actually have put in a proposal to do strategic planning for a university and got beat out by a company that does that exclusively. So we didn't feel too bad, but I don't know. What would you add to that, Helen?
We had conversations about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated, I think you gave 2 times ago, you spoke in here, and there was somebody who said, when I go and visit out of town, I go and visit a company that does what I do.
Yes.
So I can get ideas.
Right.
And, for us, finding consultants outside of this area might not be something that's really easy given what we do. But there are other people who do what we do. They do the trainings, they provide that kind of guidance and support. But when it comes down to it, if I had to refer anybody, I always referred them to Leah. And so for me, that was huge, that I could trust her and say, hey, Leah, can you do this one contract, knowing that she might come back to me and say, would you take over this one?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't easy to partner with somebody and have that fear, but we have had discussions about things where we have encountered it, where you don't have that trust with somebody else. And again, you have to know who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that we probably knew each other 4 years before we actually got to where we were really intermingling. But every time I would turn around and hear, well, Leah is, and Leah is, I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. We should not be competing. Let's bring it together. Because we each have our separate skill sets that we can bring together, but we are very much in alignment.
And there are certain projects that both of us have wanted to pursue separately, but have realized I can't take that on by myself. And so having someone you can trust is huge. We've also talked about this abundance theory. Are you familiar with that concept? That there's enough work out there for all of us, within reason, and whatever you're good at, you will float to the top in your particular career field. And so I'm never too worried about competition. I don't look at what other people are doing. I'm curious, and I'll be friendly and whatnot, and I look at it differently, I guess, and I don't want to feel like, ooh, I wonder who else is bidding on this project. I just gotta.
Oh, I do. I go in and I look.
Well, if it's a government thing, you can look.
Yes.
But if it's just a non-government kind of thing, you don't know. And sometimes I'll ask if somebody calls and said, "Thanks for your proposal. We picked somebody else." I've gotten to the point where I'm courageous enough to say, "Can you just share what I could have done differently, or what the other person had that I didn't?" One time I found out the references I provided did not call back. So shame on me for picking the references I did, but that's a lesson learned.
I will, one of the experiences that I have had as well is you get into situations, and there's this thing called a non-compete clause that some people make you do. And I had worked for a company and they decided not to do a non-compete clause with me. They didn't make me sign it, but after I left, they started doing it with their clients. Because I was part of the discussion to get that initiated, it's a company that I will never compete against, not knowingly. And so last year I was approached to run a fundraising company, or to run a fundraising campaign for a nonprofit. And I said, can you tell me if this company is also going to be submitting a proposal? And they asked me why. And I said, I don't have a formal non-compete, but I respect them enough and I've worked with them enough to know that I will not compete against them on any proposal. And so if they are, I am going to forgo submitting a proposal. So you have to know where your lines are too. Mm-hmm. I ended up getting the contract and now I'm hired by them full time. So that is something that I have to balance out too. I'm working a full-time job and I'm running my own company. So where does that balance again sometimes comes in?
I wonder about that when I get an email on a Sunday afternoon from you. Like, Helen, what are you doing working on a Sunday afternoon? Just saying.
It's in between laundry loads. Yes.
Jack Sitch, GSA Productions. What is one of the greatest needs you're finding out there for women in business that they're coming to you for and wanting to get beyond?
That's a good question.
I know one that I've come across, and maybe you'll have another one on top of this, is the aspect of getting paid. And I will go back to that. Guys, you are so good, honestly, about saying, you know what, this is what my fee is, and you don't deviate from that too much. This is the way it is. Women, we a lot of times will back off a little bit and say, okay, what can I do to make it work? And what it does is it minimizes the value that we are bringing to the table as well. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because we are so willing to help, and not that men aren't. Randy, he has gone out of his way and answered phone calls for me when I've wrecked a car. Once or twice. We aren't counting anymore. I'm not submitting any more claims. So, all of those things that we find that are different in terms of how we approach or how we submit a proposal. How aggressive are we? How assertive are we? That's one of the issues that I've encountered.
Mm-hmm. Just right off the top of my head, the one that floats up is this idea of speaking up for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think women are much more prone to sit back and not be willing to ask for what they need. And I know a lot of men who are great at that. I know some who are not, but I would say that's kind of one of the things I've seen besides what Helen is saying, that just that idea of ask for what you want, have the courage, and the worst that can happen is that you get a no, but at least your intentions have been made. They've been aware of your intentions now.
You talk about people taking time. We can criticize people for having their Wednesday afternoon golf games every week and being on the, you know what? Kudos to you that do that.
Right.
You take that time for yourself. And this is an opportunity for us to take time to really be self-reflective. Mm-hmm. We've been calling each of the participants from our first session and asking for feedback. We also do surveys. Those can be dangerous sometimes at the end of a session, what did you like, what did you not like, kind of thing. But one of the things that keeps on coming up in every discussion I've had is I haven't had time to stop and think about who I am.
Right.
And that is huge. We go and we go, and I don't care what gender you are, I don't care what race or what position you're in. We go and we go. We're a nation of doers.
Yes.
And we're all about producing.
Right.
And what we don't do is we don't take the time to sit back and reflect. Some of you in this room I know are very good at doing that. I'm going to a beach somewhere with Deanna at some time because that's where she goes. February, March?
Next month.
Okay, that'll work too.
Yeah, that would be another thing I see a lot is people just not taking time for themselves, and that's honestly one of my challenges that I'm talking about during the shifted time is if I have say 4 hours on a Sunday with nothing to do, I'm almost panicked. Like, isn't there something I should be doing? I don't want to live that way. I want to be able to just sit with vigor like my grandparents did. They'd say I can sit with vigor. I can't do that right now, and I'm working on it though. That's one of my shifting prerogatives at this time.
Yes, Debbie.
Debbie Pack, KSLT and Breeze, what advice would you give to a woman who is not the CEO or owns her own business but has amazing insight and ideas? And like you said, speaking up about those, what kind of advice would you want in that area?
I think any one of us can lead from where we are. When I was in the military, my bosses were full bird colonels, like very top ranked, and some of the best ideas that came out of the office were mine. And I didn't get credit for it. In fact, my boss once said, "Your job is to make me look good." Okay, sir. And I did that, but some of those ideas were mine. And the way that they got implemented was I spoke up. And sometimes it was painful. I got shut down a lot. But I feel like any one of us can lead from where we are. And, you might get a no, you might get pushback, but at a minimum, we should try. If we have good ideas, if we see change that needs to be made. So I've seen a lot of amazing things happen from people who are not at the top. They're in the middle, maybe they're at the bottom even. But what about you, Helen? What would you say about that?
Totally agree with you. And the women that are in our group are not all business owners. Some of them are just starting their careers. A salesperson in their team. Another person is the office administrative assistant, office manager, which that got changed because of a push to change the title because they aren't just an assistant. They manage the office. And that's just even those little things that do matter. We don't think a title matters, or we've tried to tell people that a title doesn't matter. It's not that it matters so much to the outside, it matters to the inside.
Yeah, good point. Yes, Deanna.
Deanna Beckett, character coach. Do you focus, I hear a lot of positions that are in the group right now. Do you focus on supportive positions, leadership positions, entrepreneurs, mix of all, and how do you approach that in teaching? Because everybody's at a different level.
Well, we have recruited really a mix of all sorts of different careers. Initially, we thought the younger professional women would be attracted to this kind of a group, and a lot of them were, but they didn't want to pay for it. Like, okay, well, we get that. But the group that we ended up with at this first session it just felt like divine intervention, like they were meant to be there with us and vice versa. As far as, I forgot the second part of your question.
Meeting each of their needs.
Oh, right, meeting their needs. I think we've vetted a list we started with, I'd say 100 different topics, and we pared that down to what are the topics that are most requested and most needed by a variety of professionals or entrepreneurs or what have you. So we did a personal mission statement with our first session. Everyone should have a personal mission statement, and that's really just who am I and where am I going. So topics that apply to a wide audience is what we ended up selecting.
Even on that personal mission statement, if people had their personal, for example, I had my own personal mission statement, but something that dawned on me is I really didn't have a mission statement for my business. And so that, I went through that exercise in that group just to focus on that piece, and I came up with it. We had people in our group who, they were like, well, I'm a part of a bigger team. Well, you still got to have your personal mission, and they hadn't thought about it outside of the scope of what their company was. What is the company's mission and vision? And bringing it back to, so how does my personal vision and mission fit into that? And it is all about giving them questions and giving them the opportunity to dialogue from the point that they are, whatever stage you are at. Go ahead, Leah.
I would say continue to bring us ideas. I mean, maybe you have an idea of what we can do, what we're capable of. I get people approaching me all the time and say, you do customer service training, yes. You need to go into this restaurant and that restaurant and tell them they suck and fix them. Well, as much as I want to do that, I can tell you that's not how it works. I only do like self-referrals. I don't go out and say to a business, you're kind of jacked up, how about you hire me to help you? And it doesn't work that way. So if you have ideas if you see a need, something that we could do, we would appreciate that kind of a reach out. How about you, Helen?
I think the big thing is know that there's resources out there. And if you can't find the resource that you need for the point you are in your career, call us, ask us.
Right.
Ask other people, ask people in this room. We all shift different times. It says on average we shift every 7 years. So I just had lunch, I had wine, quite honestly, with a couple of people. And these two women have known each other since the beginning of their careers, and they are actually on the cusp of deciding of whether they're going to retire or not. And they have shifted, and they're the ones that use the word. We have shifted so many times in our careers. And so it was just kind of cool to see those two. But the information about Shift It, you are more than welcome to join or recommend it to somebody, pass the card to someone else. We encourage you all to join us, but we are limited. We did limit it to 20 slots.